The trade war with China escalates. Is 2018 the year of the trucking capacity crunch? BNSF and the future of coal. I'm JP.
And I'm Chad.
And we discuss these topics and more on this week's episode of What the Truck. What you got there, Chad?
Well, today, JP, I have got a St. Teresa's Pale Ale from the shout out to the Asheville Brewing Company. One cool thing about the Asheville Brewing Company is that founded in 1994, they are Asheville's first legal brewery since Prohibition.
Wow.
Yeah, and this particular one's kind of a classic golden pale ale. It's got some Cascade hops. And apparently they do this like whole leaf hop thing where you get some hop on the back end, and then they also do a dry hopping technique where you do the hopping after you've brewed.
Hippity hop.
It creates this kind of, as they say, delicate citrus nose and assertive American hop flavor. I just kind of find it, just a nice, solid, easy drinking pale ale. And what you got, dog?
Well, you know me. I got the Bell's Two Hearted Ale. It is made with 100% Centennial hops and is bursting with aromas. More importantly, it has a 7.0 ABV.
It does?
Yep.
No wonder it has the high price tag, too, of $22 for a 12-pack. Didn't even know that.
Thanks for that, Chad.
High end. Well, you know what? Today, there's been a lot of talk about real news and fake news, what with the Facebook scandal of late. And in light of this week also beginning with April Fools, we thought we'd play fake news or real news.
Uh-oh.
JP, are you ready? We're just going to ask you I'm going to give you 5 headlines.
Okay. And I have to say fake news or real headline?
That's correct.
Okay.
I hope you're ready.
All right.
Truck carrying dough overflows after heat makes it rise.
I'm going to say that's a real headline.
Correct. Real as can be. Nice. The dump truck that happened to be carrying bread dough down a Washington interstate this summer got a little too hot, causing the dough to rise and overflow from the truck.
Wow, was it a reefer unit by any chance?
I don't know, but cops spotted the truck dropping balls of growing dough, and they actually shared the photos on social media before they helped to clean up the mess. We won't explain every headline here for time's sake, but here's number 2. Even CEO can't figure out how Radio Shack's still in business.
Real headline.
Well, no, it was actually an Onion headline. So that's fake news.
Okay.
So,
well, I can't figure out how Radio Shack is still in business.
That was tricky. Okay, ready for this one? EPA Chief Scott Pruitt plagiarizes Chevron press release.
That sounds real to me.
It does sound real. Gotcha.
Oh!
Fake again. Oh. I know, only 2 true possibly though,
wow. Right? That probably actually, we need to look into that. I bet he has done that.
Number 4, teen truckers would be dreamy for states that love the government.
Real?
No! I just made that up.
Damn you, pre-post.
All right, and finally, we'll give you a bonus too, but here's number 5. Trucking industry struggles to cope with growing driver shortage.
Real. Yeah, that was kind of easy. Okay.
Right. Wow. That's pretty much like every headline for the past every day for the past several years. Bonus round for you. Last one. Police appeal for information about chicken crossing road.
I think you're kind of giving me a pump fake here. I'm going to say true. I'm going to say real headline.
Real news. Yes, I'll explain this one. It's absolutely real news reported by the BBC in 2016. Police were called when drivers in a British town spotted a lone chicken wandering the street and grew concerned, and the officers were dispatched to catch the hen, and then they reached out to the community to try to find the bird's rightful owner. Thanks for playing.
British police are so quaint.
That is quaint, isn't it? But I thought the chicken crossing the road pertained to our logistics situation here. But let's talk about the headlines of the week and the trade war escalating. Bring us up to speed. What is happening? Some turns in the story happened this very week.
Yeah, so the Trump administration, the White House, the Department of Trade, Robert Lighthizer, our U.S. Trade Representative, announced some tariffs against China pertaining to especially certain industries where in order for foreign investments, in order for American companies to operate in China, they have to surrender certain kinds of intellectual property rights. So we announced tariffs, and about 11 hours later, Xi Jinping and the Chinese government retaliated with a series of mini tariffs against many kinds of products, ranging from airplanes and automobiles to soybeans and
Can I take a time out? I have a question about it. So, to my understanding, because I haven't been following the details completely of the story, but my understanding was last week it seemed like China was going to play softball, and they were just going to be the adults in the room sort of, and they were going to be well, okay. We'll just put a tariff on $3 billion worth of things. It might affect some of the rural, folks, whatever the strategy is there. Then it seemed like the beginning of this week happened, and it was wait a minute, it's 50 billion or something far more significant.
14 billion just in soybeans. 14
billion just in soybeans, right? Which effectively. They're our main importer of soybeans, correct? So it effectively kills a huge sector of that industry.
Yeah, it's really weird. We published a story on this. Was it Ibrahim Bayan's story? I think it was
last week. I thought. Well, anyway, I think this week.
Anyway, there's a chart from Bloomberg that really shows the seasonal flows of Chinese imports of American soybeans, and it's kind of interesting because really Brazil and the U.S. are the biggest suppliers of soybeans to China, but when it's in the sort of around wintertime, New Year, Brazilian exports to China really fall, and that's when American exports rise to sort of cover the balance. So China tries to maintain a stable amount of imports, of soybeans coming in, but the flow from Brazil and from the U.S. kind of alternate. This is really bad. I mean, even our state,
seems really significant.
Tennessee, West Tennessee, soybeans are a really big, important cash crop. If they're made, if they're basically non-competitive compared to Brazilian soybeans or soybeans from another country on the Chinese market, I mean, that's bad.
What's the takeaway right now then? Where are we? Has there been a response from the White House?
Yeah, well, so none of the important thing to remember is that these tariffs haven't taken effect yet, and the stock market was kind of freaking out.
Right.
It's really hard to know, sort of how all of this plays out. There are exceptions, and various industries have certain kinds of exposure to different kinds of resources, that kind of thing. But it seems like this might have been a little bit of Trumpian bluster in order to bring China to the table and kind of negotiate some other kind of deal. I don't think I know for a fact that China doesn't want to impose these tariffs. We know it remains to be seen how committed the White House is to imposing far-reaching tariffs against China, because we are in an election year. It's midterms in 2018. Most of the Republican legislators in Congress are not in favor of tariffs. They tend to be free traders. Paradoxically, the support that Trump has gotten on tariffs have come from liberal Democrats.
Yeah, strange.
And so, if a trade war precipitates and markets are affected negatively because of that. People see their IRA values going down, their 401ks going down. Who do they take it out on in 2018 midterms? It could be the Republicans. They can't vote against Trump. They can vote against Republicans, and they're not even by and large supporting this. And so we might see a kind of a split between the Congress, the Republican Congress, and President Trump. We might see the Republican Congress try to say, okay, Trump, let's see if we can work this out. Let's see if we can do something different. You've made your point. Now, can we get a win? Can we get a slightly better deal? Save face, not actually go down this road.
Yeah.
So it's a little early in the process, but I mean,
for sure,
it looks like there could be a way out, and
we'll see how far we go down that road.
The past couple of days, the stock market is kind of
has been coming back up a
little bit.
Yeah, after a scary few days. The next major story is it's starting to seem like 2018 just might become the year known as the year of the trucking capacity crunch. And, as we know, and everyone probably listening to our podcast knows, freight trucks are the lifeblood of America's consumer economy. They represent 71% of the nation's freight by tonnage shipped and 81.5% of the nation's freight by cost spent, at least according to the data from the ATA, the American Trucking Association. But what we're noticing, there's a trend happening is in the time of this capacity crunch, it's been happening for a few years. Wages for truck drivers have been going up. There's some data that shows that from 2013 to 2017 that it's gone up by about 15% to $53,000 on average. So some interesting things are happening, but do you think, as some are suggesting, that, is just a raise in driver pay, even if it's significant? Do you think that will? Is there an easy button?
No, there's not really an easy button. In my personal opinion, and just from the conversations I've had with recruiters, with CEOs of trucking companies, people who look at that sort of people who are in charge of driver retention. It's not that easy. One data point that was kind of circulating on LinkedIn a few weeks ago that makes me question whether driver pay is really a cure-all for the driver shortage is that it seems like you can make the argument that as if there's 50,000 missing truck drivers from the workforce, which is what Bob Costello says.
He says by 2026 it could go up to 175,000 if we don't do something about it.
We've actually seen kind of an increase in the number of professional drivers, not truck drivers, but professional drivers on the roads. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about Uber, I'm talking about Lyft.
You're not talking about like freight drivers. You're talking about basically becoming taxi drivers for Uber and Lyft.
Yeah, there's been a huge surge in those kinds of jobs and in those employment numbers. But what's interesting is that we know that those people don't actually make that much money. There have been studies that have come out saying, they're clearing, like $4 an hour after expenses. Uber disputes that, says their internal studies show more. They didn't actually release the data.
It's peanuts.
It's not a lot. So, but what is the advantage that Uber drivers have compared to over-the-road truck drivers? It's one, working when you want to, and two, getting home every night.
Right, and that's a big one.
It's these kind of quality of life issues that people are valuing.
We can name many things, right?
Possibly more than money, than the total salary itself. And so, that makes me think moves that carriers have made, like trying to transition more to regional lanes where they can offer drivers more home time. That kind of thing might help them retain their high-quality drivers better than just simply throwing more money at them. Well, and especially, that should be more effective than signing bonuses.
Right. Although, I don't know what the difference maker would be. I do know that, so why is 2018 in particular becoming maybe the story of the tightening capacity crunch? And it's due to kind of a perfect storm right now of increasing e-commerce retail, the uptick in construction and manufacturing, although, that has actually leveled off a little bit in the past couple of months, but it's also fueled just by a strong economy, rising wages, and virtually full national employment. And then actually of late, you top it all off with several consecutive massive weather events, especially across the Northeast. And, supply has been drastically squeezed, which certainly is pushing up rates. We'll see what the ELD mandate does, but I mean, you throw that on top of the fire, there are a lot of mitigating factors. UIDA said something too. What was their suggestion?
It's the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association said that trucker pay needs to be doubled. Doubled,
yeah. And that could be the easy button.
It's hard to see how. I mean, that's not going to happen, but the last half of 2017, we saw really high spot rates. We saw a couple situations where spot rates were leading contract rates. That was really because we had high capacity, we had high demand for freight. So we had strong economic fundamentals, surging economy, some months over 3% GDP growth. And we had low overall supply in terms of capacity, in terms of trucks. So we had high demand coinciding with low capacity. Normally, you don't get both of those at the same time for a sustained period.
Which we have had.
But we've had that. And so, looking forward, if we're really talking about is 2018 going to be the year of the capacity crunch? Well, it's only a capacity, no matter what the absolute number of trucks on the road is, it's only a capacity crunch to the extent that demand exceeds capacity. And so we want to be looking at the, and we're going to obviously be paying attention to this on FreightWaves, but the upcoming earnings calls for major companies, especially trucking companies, to end first quarter. That'll be a good gauge to see, how well the economy's doing. If earnings start to, one thing that people have always said, if you pay attention to the stock market, is that people are saying, how long can this bull market last? It's the second longest in American history so far. Bull markets don't die of old age, of course, but as long as the economic fundamentals are solid, it should continue. And so we're always paying attention to the earnings. If the earnings start going down, then demand will start going down. And then it doesn't really matter if there's a driver shortage, there just won't be as much freight. And so rates will fall.
Yeah, possibly. It seems like autonomous vehicles have been taken out of the equation as a solution. I'm glad that they're pointing a finger and looking at what can they do. We'll see what the solution might be. Our final major headline of the week is, what's the deal with coal? You know a lot about this subject. I thought coal was basically dead, but tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Yeah, so I wrote this story earlier this week on BNSF and the future of coal. So we know, so BNSF is, the second largest rail by revenue. And
they're not just out in Appalachia where we associate coal as being.
No, they're actually out west.
Right.
And they're a Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary. Last year,
which is owned by Warren Buffett.
Yeah, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger run that company. Last year, BNSF represented about 44% of Berkshire Hathaway's profit. So it's a major component, major company. And here's the deal.
Yeah.
So American coal isn't really dead. Coal production and consumption in America, if you look at long-term charts, rose exponentially from about 1870 until about 2008. And then that was its peak. and then it started to fall off.
Okay.
It had a pretty bad year in 2016, for example. Not that much coal was mined, not that much coal was burned.
Yeah.
Basically because a lot of liquefied natural gas came
right.
onto the market from the shale fracking boom at rock bottom prices. And so
controversial.
And so also controversial, also bad for the environment in different ways. But a lot of power plants converted from coal to gas. And so demand for coal immediately fell. That being said, coal is still really important to American electricity. I mean, if you
tell us the kind of coal, you told me about this earlier this week. There's some kind of like low sulfur fuel out west that they're harvesting now.
So what's really interesting is that BNSF has sort of a dominant position for the Powder River Basin coal fields, which are in Montana and Wyoming.
Yeah.
Sort of straddles Montana and Wyoming.
Yeah, and you've got a cool map of that in your article.
Yeah, and this coal isn't great coal. It's kind of wet, it's kind of dirty, it's kind of mixed in with the soil. You have to get at it with basically strip mining. It has fairly low BTUs, in terms of how much energy you can get out of it. It's fairly low compared to Appalachian coal, but it has really, really low sulfur content. And so when the EPA really started regulating power plant emissions in terms of sulfur released, Appalachian coal went down because it's high sulfur, and this suddenly became a thing.
Because it's more valuable because it already would be lower emission.
Yeah. And so you didn't have to spend as much money adding scrubbing technology to the power plant. You could just use this coal that naturally had less sulfur. And so really in this region, for example, in 1970, basically no coal came out of this region. By 1988, Wyoming was, producing more coal than any other state. And now it's producing, 3 times as much coal as West Virginia, which is like the next biggest coal-producing state. And BNSF dominates this region, and they bring.
Are they the only major railroad that is still profitable with coal? Or
with coal.
With coal.
So the thing with BNSF is they have the biggest proportion of their total carloads is coal. They're at 17.9% coal. A couple of railroads around 12%, and then some railroads are like 5% or below.
I see.
So they have way more coal. They're way more exposed to coal in some ways. And our question is, if coal continues to decline, is BNSF going to go down with coal, or are they going to be the last coal carrier standing?
And it's ironic that even though it's alive and probably will be doing just fine as what I ascertain through the next several decades to one extent or another, it is a fossil fuel. There is a limitation to it. And I think even the late Hunter Harrison of CSX predicted that it would be dead. And,
Hunter Harrison said that fossil fuels were dead. Of course, he was saying that
because he's a competitor.
Because CSX is in Appalachia. Appalachia coal is going down, so he's trying to.
But why would Warren Buffett himself say that?
It's interesting. I don't know. That's the mysterious part of this whole story. Warren Buffett says if you're tied to coal, you're in trouble. On the other hand, Berkshire Hathaway buys BNSF. They buy these Western utility companies that are very coal heavy, like Pacificor, like Mid-American Energy. The actual, the trains owned by Warren Buffett are taking coal to the power plants owned by Warren Buffett. I mean, it's, we think of him as like the epitome of the prudent long-term investor who's not, just trading on, temporary ups and downs. And so I get kind of a mixed message from him. I don't know. I think the real answer would be to look at how closely do BNSF coal volumes track to overall coal production and consumption to see how effective they actually are. And maybe that's a topic for a future story.
Absolutely. Well, those are the really interesting major headlines of the week. Now it's time to play Big Deal or Little Deal, in which Chad and JP run down the rest of the stories in 2 minutes or under. Barry, production manager, are you timing us, sir? Okay, he's giving us the thumbs up.
Silent Barry has given us the thumbs up.
Okay, we like Barry because he can't talk back, and for other reasons. Chad is going to ask JP to begin this segment. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The FMCSA moves to exempt mirrorless trucks from federal regulations. Big deal or little deal?
Little deal, but it's nice to see the FMCSA embrace this kind of technology and open up the regulations, allowing video monitoring for trucks.
Celadon, described as NAFTA's premier carrier, says its financial reports can't be relied on. Big deal or little deal?
Big deal. Celadon shareholders found out that their equity is worth a lot less than they thought. It's been delisted from the New York Stock Exchange, so now it's trading over the counter. We're still waiting on the results of this turnaround.
ELDs hard enforcement began April 1st. Big deal or little deal?
Little deal. The surveys by carrier lists have shown that even the small fleets are about 90% compliant, and it seems like the loss in productivity per truck has already been priced into the market. The ATA wants higher truck weight limits. Big deal or little deal?
A surprisingly complex topic with a lot of competing points of view. It would be interesting to look at the Australian example, but little deal because no, nothing's going to happen anytime soon.
Construction activity stalls. Big deal or little deal?
Yeah, it was another month, 2 months now of like very flat reports on it, but I think it's a little deal. We need to keep our eye on it. It's also a complex topic. We may just have been like receiving some hurricane boost at the end of the end of last year, but I'm going to say little deal for now, but let's keep an eye on it.
Georgia Port's Mason Mega Rail project seeks to double capacity by 2020. Big deal or little deal?
Big, huge deal. I mean, it's like it's already a huge port. It's going to get bigger and bigger. They received a huge amount of funding. The Norfolk Southern that runs out of there has almost 2,000 miles of track as it is, and CSX has 1,600, and it's going to open up hundreds of thousands of jobs. And we went way over on that. But my thanks, Barry, for letting me know. Anyway, that was the stories of the week. And that'll do it for the big stories this week. As always, we go into more detail about each of the topics we've talked about today on our website, FreightWaves.com. We will continue to publish this podcast weekly, so be sure to subscribe to What the Truck on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure to leave us a review to let us know what you think of our new podcast.
And if you're into learning about technology that's shaping up the industry, you definitely want to be at Transparency 18 in Atlanta this May. Visit transparency18.com to learn more about the event.
That'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week on What the Truck.